believe that we will go from guttermost to uttermost. I believe that we will go from slave ship to championship. I believe that we will go from outhouse to state house to courthouse to White House. I believe we will rise all the way to the top. I believe that. My mind is made up. I'm on my way. Yes, I am gonna.
They're singing, "My mind is made up, I'm on my way up." But Jesse Jackson's mind is not made up. For months, he's been talking about running for president, but putting off the final decision. Will he enter the Democratic primaries or not?
Trouble in my way, I have to cry sometime.
He now says he will announce his decision later this month.
I have to cry sometime.
If we believe in our democracy, then we believe that a time will come when the person we elect president could be black. But is that time 1984? Perhaps in his secret heart, Jesse Jackson measures himself against the other candidates and thinks that he could do as well as any of them in the White House. He won't say, but in the meantime, he can offer several other reasons why he might run for president.
The energy that we're organizing now is not just focused on the White House, it's focused on every level of government. We'll be able to translate the energy of this national enthusiasm into higher voter registration, more participation, more coalition.
I'll vote for you for president.
We're not talking about just a person running. We're talking about many people running for Congress and state legislature and supervisor and sheriff and registrar and tax assessor and school board. We're not talking about a kind of one-horse race.
But Jackson is making all the moves that would give him the time and support to enter the Democratic primaries. This past week, he took a leave of absence from the leadership of his civil rights organization, Operation Push, People United to Save Humanity.
Do you have an estimate of how many people a year try to cross the wall?
No.
He just completed a European tour, the traditional candidate swing around the continent, speaking on foreign policy issues, urging American soldiers to register to vote.
There was a time in the American military where blacks and Hispanics had the obligation to fight for democracy for other people and couldn't vote back home. But this generation of blacks, Hispanics, and women, you in fact can register to vote. Fact is, when you register for the service, you ought to register to vote right there. We could very well have 12 to 20 black and Hispanic congresspersons by next November.
And he has formed a Jesse Jackson Presidential Advisory Committee to help him make his final decision. He sees good omens in black astronauts and black beauty contest winners.
It's a great moment in history. The stars in their courses are smiling upon us. And as surely as a man can by night fly around the world on a space mission, and we can have a woman as Miss America, if we can have a Miss America, we can have a Mr. President. Just that basic. It's just that basic. Thank you very much.
You wanted to find out where you could go and register to vote today?
Do you have the pen?
Yes, I have one.
Blacks are registering to vote and running for office in numbers that are transforming the political balance all over the country. There are more than 17 million blacks of voting age. More than 10 million are already registered. And a half dozen national organizations are hoping to add several million more to the lists before the 1984 presidential election.
Mr. Reagan won Massachusetts, Ted Kennedy's state, by 2,500 votes in 1980, 50,000 unregistered blacks. He won Illinois by 300,000 votes. There were 700,000 unregistered blacks. He won New York by 137,000, 900,000 unregistered blacks. He won 8 southern states with a cumulative total of 182,000 votes. But there were 3 million unregistered blacks. And so black mobilization and motivation and interest is the key to a new course in American politics.
We want it all. We want it here. We want it now.
Jackson was instrumental in registering enough votes in Chicago to elect a black mayor this year for the first time.
We're going to run for mayor. We're going to run for governor. We're going to run for senator. We're going to run for White House. We're going to run for it all.
At age 41, Jackson is talking about running for the White House.
I am somebody. I am somebody. I want a job. 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 I want a job.
In years past, he demonstrated in front of the White House.
Why are we here in front of the White House today? Because Mr. Ford has no commitment to a livable wage for everybody.
He started out as a staff member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He is an ordained Baptist minister, a disciple of Martin Luther King.
Spirits Division as well as Kentucky Fried Chicken.
In the 1970s, he founded PUSH and PUSH Excel in Chicago, civil rights organizations that concentrate on school motivation programs and so-called trade covenants with industry, designed to secure jobs for blacks and business for black companies.
What is going to be an economic movement that other corporations are going to be beating down your door to find out how you do it, how it works.
At the end of August, Jackson was one of the main speakers at the 20th anniversary of the March on Washington.
20 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream for all Americans. 20 years later, the power of his dream has drawn this generation together and inspires us to keep on dreaming. 20 years ago, we came to these hallowed grounds as a rainbow coalition to demand our freedom.
Jackson knows that if he runs in the primaries, his chances of winning the Democratic nomination are remote. But he thinks he could force a more serious and exciting debate of a whole range of issues that would appeal to a new rainbow coalition of black, brown, and white voters.
I'm very interested in the rainbow vote because there's always a danger in the isolation approach. I think that we must search for common ground, and there are many levels where the interests of blacks, Hispanics, women, teenagers, peace activists, unemployed people, our interests converge. And we must always struggle, it seems to me, to move from racial battleground and polarization to economic common ground.
We've been apart.
This is not a struggle for blacks only. The industrial collapse of auto, steel, electronics, rubber, and textile was not blacks only. The need for a new food policy is not for blacks only. This cry for health and education to be served based upon need, not just based upon wealth, is not for blacks only. So I think that the coalition is being underestimated.
We must come together and rise to our potential as a people.
Are all blacks in favor of Jackson's proposal to enter the Democratic primaries? Not by any means. Many black leaders are doubtful and anxious about the ultimate impact of a Jackson run in 1984.
Is Jesse Jackson smart enough to be president of the United States?
I think he is. And I think that Jesse Jackson has a lot more experience in the problems affecting this nation and this world than at least half of the other candidates running, particularly the guy that's in the White House. But the one thing that Jesse does not have that I think mitigates against his presidency is he has not been able to have this rainbow coalition that he talks about, because everybody talks about his candidacy as a black candidacy. If people had talked about John Kennedy's candidacy as a Catholic candidacy, it would have put the kiss of death on it so soon that it never would have gone anywhere. And I don't know that Jesse can reverse that and go from a black candidacy to a rainbow coalition in time to really be relevant beyond the black community or even in the black community.
I would think Walter Mondale comes closest to representing the hopes and dreams and aspirations of black Americans. Among the white candidates, I think Walter Mondale stands head and shoulders above the pack in that regard.
Georgia State Senator Julian thinks there should be black supporters in the camp of each one of the Democratic candidates.
All of the polls, Gallup and Harris and all the rest, show pretty concisely that every vote Jesse Jackson gets is a vote taken away from Walter Mondale. The polls demonstrate pretty clearly that Mondale's support among blacks drops from about a little more than 50% to a little less than 27%, and that's a drop that his candidacy may not be able to survive.
What's going on there?
Jackson has other problems. Some of his statements of support for the PLO have alienated Democrats in the American Jewish community. Government auditors have challenged some education expenditures by Push Excel, one of Jackson's civil rights organizations in Chicago. Jackson says he was not directly involved and that what he terms disputes between auditors will be resolved. But his name is inevitably drawn into the controversy. And some people are simply put off by his energy, his audacity, his ego.
Agitate, cogitate, demonstrate, but get to freedom. Our right to freedom is non-negotiable.
I cannot imagine anybody assuming major responsibility with an ego deficit. As a matter of fact, a person in high office with an ego deficit would be a national security risk. You realize that 20 years ago, if someone fought to use a bathroom, that was a militant act? And when we marched for the right to vote, that was considered a militant act. We have been so far down as we now begin to reach up and dare to be mayor and governor and senator and president. It looks abnormal, but in fact, it's very normal.
Andrew Young.
I have no problem and have supported everything Jesse's done up to now, and he's really done a marvelous job. But our job is to excite voters for November '84. I don't see any way that Jesse can get through the primary process and be available to transfer the enthusiasm from him to somebody else between July and November.
Julian
I think most black elected officials, most black politicians, and I think the overwhelming majority of the black population is going to be very strongly supportive of Jackson if he becomes a formally announced candidate. Some will do so reluctantly, feeling that they have been forced into supporting him when their original choice would have been someone else. If Jackson makes it clear that supporting him isn't necessarily a litmus test of racial allegiance, then I think 1984 could be a very, very healthy situation for black Americans. It's not likely that all of us are going to support the same candidate, so if he gives his seal of approval to the proposition that we can disagree without being disagreeable, then I think all of us will be winners in the end.
Other blacks have run for president. Shirley Chisholm, Eldridge Cleaver, Dick Gregory. The difference is that if Jesse Jackson runs, he could have a major impact on the final outcome in 1984. But Jesse Jackson's mind is not made up. If we believe in our democracy, then we believe that a time will come when the person we elect president could be black. But is that time 1984?
I am somebody. There is a freedom train coming, but you got to register to ride. Get on board. God bless you.
Bob Faw has been covering Jesse Jackson since the day after Christmas, so I guess he ought to be qualified to tell us a little bit about what's on Jesse Jackson's mind these days. Bob, he went to Cuba, he went to Nicaragua, now he's talking about going to the Soviet Union to try to free Andrei Sakharov. What's all that about? I mean, what does he have in mind?
Well, you know, I think what he has in mind is doing what Jesse Jackson has always done, moving around, making noise, getting noticed. For years, he has made trips, and we did not notice. He was not a presidential candidate. A lot of people noticed this time, not only because he is, but because he went to a place, Cuba, where a lot of reporters wanted to go, and so 100 went along with him. But there's nothing new in all this, and if Jesse Jackson can walk away from all this with a few people who otherwise would still be staying there, then more the better, he says. It's worth the risk.
But the risk is considerable. I mean, President Reagan hasn't exactly said he's going to prosecute him if he interferes in the Sakharov matter, but he made it clear that he's very unhappy about a private citizen doing that kind of thing.
And the administration made it very unhappy back in December when Jesse Jackson went to Cuba. Don't go, they said privately. Go if you must, but without a great deal of help from us. But please don't muddy the waters. Please don't stir things up. Please don't wreck a very delicate situation. And the word was passed that if he goes, he probably will not get to talk to Assad. He certainly will not bring Goodman out. And lo and behold, he did both. And lo and behold, he goes to Cuba and is used in a way by Castro, but walks away with 50 people who otherwise would have stayed there. They will laugh, says Jackson, but if I walk away, the proof is in the pudding. And in this case, there are nearly 60 people who are back in respective countries that otherwise wouldn't have been.
To be sure, but a lot of American voters were offended by the apparent embrace of a tyrant in Cuba.
It's not customary for a presidential candidate to go abroad and criticize America, much less link arms with an announced critic of the country. And he did that. He did it, he says, for a reason, to promote a kind of dialogue. It's important, he says, to look upon this as a symbolic trip. There was much in the way of it that was beyond symbolic and symbolism. There was much for which he could be criticized, but what should be remembered, he says, is that this is an overture and must be approached as an overture by a private citizen.
What does Jesse Jackson want?
I don't think he wants to be a senator from South Carolina. There is a move afoot in South Carolina to draft him. A black candidate, from the viewpoint of a lot of people, was deprived of the nomination. There's a great deal of resentment in South Carolina toward the Democratic Party and the process, so there is this effort. And Jesse Jackson is flirting with the idea.
Well, it makes sense in a way, doesn't it? I mean, Strom Thurmond's an elderly man now. He's up for re-election, and Jesse is popular in his home state.
Jesse is popular with blacks in South Carolina. The population of South Carolina, the voting population, about 30% black. The fact of the matter is he probably could not beat Strom Thurmond in South Carolina, and Jesse Jackson has learned to count, and he knows that. On the other hand, Strom Thurmond is the symbol, and Jesse Jackson needs something to run against. Very attractive, just to pit the two, if only in newspaper terms. So he is toying with the idea, but he's not doing much more than that. And those who are in South Carolina and who have to put this movement together are very skeptical that he will go through with it.
All right, if he doesn't want to be senator from South Carolina, what does he want?
Well,
he knew surely going in that he wasn't going to win the presidency.
He knew going in he would not win, but it was important, he said, to try. It was important to try to shape the agenda. It was important to make a presence felt, and he has done that, arguably. 600,000 white votes, 2.25 million black votes, 3 million almost altogether. A very impressive beginning, he says, and the issues that he has talked about would not otherwise have been talked about. It is not customary in this country for American politicians to talk, presidential politicians, to talk about South Africa, to talk about taxation of corporate America. And Jesse Jackson says, I have at least put this on the table. So that has been done, and in the process, he has become clearly the most visible and perhaps the most powerful black figure in America, a long way from what Jesse Jackson was 5 years ago in Chicago.
Do you think we're going to see Mr. Jackson campaigning enthusiastically for Walter Mondale once the general election campaign begins?
Well, I think he would like to, and if overtures are made, if bones are thrown to him, if you will, at the convention, he will. Jesse Jackson knows that this is a long proposition. Jesse Jackson wants to be around 4 years. He's already 4 years from now. He's already talking about running for president 4 years from now, 8 years from now. He's 42 years old. He is not going to go away. He is not going to burn any bridges. The talk that Jesse Jackson might disrupt the convention and become a nuisance, you're not hearing that now. And you saw Jesse Jackson last week with Walter Mondale, in effect, throwing in the towel. I will go along with the Fairness Commission results, he said. Far different than what he said just 1 month ago. He is not a team player and never will be, but he wants to be on the team and he wants to be heard. And he'll do whatever it takes, I think, to get that to happen.
Do you think he's going to have an important place in the history of this country when all is said and done?
I suspect he will be remembered for a lot of things, and mostly the impact he has had, not just in political terms. Time and again, we would stop and talk to children, 8, 10, 12 years old, and ask them, for example, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be when you grow up? And time and again, the answer was, we would like to be president. Now, 5 or 6 or 5 months ago, that kind of answer probably would not have come from those children. So the attitudes are different, the expectations are different. As the writer Maya Angelou says, more is possible now. It's a matter of expectations, and he has raised that. I suspect that will be the legacy.
Bob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
When I first laid eyes on Jesse Jackson, he was a young lieutenant to Martin Luther King, a second lieutenant, I'd say. I remember him about 25 years ago leading a straggly band of protesters down a dusty street in some town in Mississippi or Alabama in what then seemed the forlorn cause of black equality in the South. I never could have imagined then that Jesse Jackson would one day be a major candidate for president. You're about to hear one of his allies from those days say the same thing about him. That he is a major candidate says something about the country and also, of course, about him. Jesse Jackson's appeal is mainly to black voters, but he has just won 26% of the vote in the primary in Vermont and 27% in the caucus runoff in Maine, states with hardly any black voters. And on Tuesday, he'll be judged in the South, where his strength is concentrated. David Culhane reports our Sunday morning cover story on the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yo, what's happening, March 8th? What's happening, March 8th? March 8th? Super Tuesday! What you do? What you gonna do? Who you gonna vote for? Who you gonna vote for? Understand, who you gonna vote for?
Who are they going to vote for? Jesse Jackson, that's who. Analysts think he could be one of the big winners Tuesday in votes and convention delegates.
Isn't that sweet? Thank you. Give him that big finger. Your finger.
Jesse Jackson can feel it coming.
There's something exciting that's going on. There's no question about it. You know, over the last 25 years, we've learned to play ball together. We've learned to go to school together. We've learned to go to war together. Now our politics are catching up with our other exposure. We're finding now to engage in political direction together.
Now people are beginning to wonder, just how far can he take this campaign?
I think it's a possibility that could go into the convention with almost as many and maybe more delegates than anybody else among the Democrats. He'd be right. He could very well be right up there in first, second place. And then what happens is the question.
Hugh Heclo is a political scientist from Virginia. He has taught at Harvard and George Mason University.
He has this rhetorical quality and presence, which in this election year, I think, does tend to stand out more than and creates more interest and excitement than it did in '84.
I will. Make a difference.
Make a difference.
We're going to vote together.
We're going to vote together.
Stand together.
We're going to stand together.
My prediction here, he would take several of the southern states. States like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Virginia, I think he will be the front runner coming out of the South in terms of that sheer number of delegates.
Democratic Congressman John Lewis of Georgia has known Jesse Jackson since the civil rights struggles of the 1960s.
He's able to capture some of the dreams and hopes of the American people, particularly Southerners.
There is a new South. Now look at the Orange Bowl and Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, and in the South on New Year's Day. And see those athletes, black and white and brown, playing together.
But the message this year is not just civil rights, it's economic rights.
It's a new South. With my friends, just behind the Orange Bowl, what about the citrus workers? Working at below minimum wage, trapped by right-to-work laws. Just behind the Cotton Bowl, what about the textile workers?
The willingness to criticize corporate America, the appeal to the forgotten man, you know, those that have been passed by as America has progressed economically, that kind of populist appeal for the forgotten in America to band together and win power.
Better that we provide for these children Head Start and daycare on the front side of life than jail care and welfare on the backside. We who believe
Jackson
this way
says it's not populism, but American family politics.
My friends, as president, I would substantially cut the supply of drugs in this country. But the people must cut the demand for the drugs. Amen. We the people.
When I speak of stop drugs from coming into this country, stop jobs from going out of our country, secure family farms and clean up our environment, that is a message that's universal and goes to the heart of the American family concern.
It's that rainbow train a-comin', It's that rainbow train a-comin',
Now there's growing evidence that Jackson's message is reaching whites as well as blacks. Even in states with small black populations, he's doing better and better. 20% in Minnesota, more than 25% in Maine and Vermont.
Oh, you got to hug me, you got to hug me. You got to hug me.
If someone had told me that a black man would be running for president of these United States when we were marching from Selma to Montgomery for the right to vote, I would have said, you're crazy, you're out of your mind.
Jesse Jackson and John Lewis marched in 1965 simply to get the right to vote for black Americans.
To me, it's almost unbelievable that we have come so far in such a short time.
And a black man now getting significant numbers of votes in virtually white states.
I think that's what we were trying to do. This is the movement dream. In 1960, 28 years ago, we used to speak a great deal about the possibility of building, not just in the South, but especially in the South, an interracial democracy. And that's what Jesse Jackson is in the process of doing, building in America an interracial democracy.
Jackson thinks white voters are getting comfortable with the idea of voting for a black candidate.
The more we focus on that which will keep America strong and make America better, the more the comfort level will increase and the negatives will go down.
But in some ways, the more Jackson's candidacy is taken seriously, the more people will reflect on negative factors.
Well, there are lots of special things about his candidacy, I think, quite beyond or besides the racial factor. There are, an ordained Baptist minister running. This makes him vulnerable in some areas. The fact that he is basically without elective national experience. And I think the third thing is, not the messenger, the message. He has a fairly, for the United States anyway, a fairly radical program.
Our challenge is to end economic violence.
And there are other problems. His statements of support for Palestinians have alienated some voters in the American Jewish community.
We surely must know that The present formula represents false security for the Israelis, no security for the Palestinians, and leaves America hapless.
Cost efficient.
And there have been questions about the finances of Push-Excel, one of his black self-help groups in Chicago. Questions about his organizational skills in Push and in his campaign.
We run a very efficient organization. And even in my work prior to this, Operation Push, we didn't have state tax money to run our organization off of. We took the dollars and dimes of the most vulnerable people. We raised the budget and balanced the budget and served. And the organization continues to serve. No other person running has done as much with as little as I have.
Next question. You have not hesitated to draw distinctions on the issues between yourself and Congressman Gephardt and between
so
yourself
far,
and
all the other candidates have shied away from heavy attacks on
You
Jackson.
haven't been nearly as vocal in talking about the differences between yourself and Reverend Jackson. Is that because you don't want to offend his black supporters here in the South and elsewhere, because you agree?
Life, he has not served in public office, and I have pointed that fact out.
They all deny it, but there is probably some truth to it. All that may change as Jackson's strength increases, and he says he's ready to fight it out on the issues.
Why bring race into it when my race is self-evident and my leadership is obvious? Let's take the issues to the people.
Do you think...
But even with Jackson's growing success, there is the assumption in political circles that the nation is not ready yet for a black president or a black vice president. Political scientist Hugh Heclo.
For Jackson, I mean, racism is still very much a part of this society, and I don't think it's going to be so easy to say, well, he faced it down and now we move on from there. It's going to be a very long, slow process still, I think, no matter how well he does.
But if he cannot win the Democratic nomination or the White House this year, what can Jesse Jackson realistically expect to gain in the way of political power? Congressman John Lewis.
Well, I think Jesse Jackson, no doubt, would like to play a major role in deciding the platform, deciding the Democratic nominee is successful. What would be the makeup of the cabinet? What would be the makeup of the judiciary, the appointments of judges, the foreign service? What role would he play as an individual?
Political scientist Hugh Heclo.
But I mean, there certainly is going to be a very powerful bloc there that's got to have some account taken of it one way or the other. If it looks like some sort of cynical deal that just, you know, disenfranchises those supporters who've been with Jackson and have now come to the convention with a very strong head of steam, then the party will be in serious trouble.
I am somebody.
Jesse Jackson is only 46 years old. He could be a force to be reckoned with in American politics for years to come.
Somebody. Stop drugs. Stop drugs. Coming in. Stop jobs. Stop jobs. Going out.
Jesse Jackson may never be elected president of these United States. But I tell you one thing he's doing. He's opened the doors for some black person, man or woman, or some minority, to walk through those doors and be elected president. And I think it's going to happen much quicker than most of us realize.
What are you going to do? Who are you going to vote for?
Ladies and gentlemen, I need your help. We're right down to the wire now. And so I ask you to help me get that vote out, to go to those polls.
Everyone counts. And we all count for one on Election Day. And folks, pollsters don't vote on Election Day. People vote on Election Day. People vote on Election Day.
On Tuesday, Americans will choose the leader who will govern us for the next 4 years. It is a great responsibility for the voters and for the new president. the presidency of the United States is the most powerful office in the world.
I expect the lowest turnout since 1948 and perhaps lower, perhaps the lowest since 24 or 20.
Curtis Gans is a Washington-based expert on voting patterns.
We're talking about somewhere between 51 and 52%, somewhere in that range. Of eligible Americans. We're talking about maybe 85 million Americans not voting.
Vice President George Bush, the Republican nominee, and Governor Michael Dukakis, the Democratic nominee.
You know, the normal pattern is, as you go into an election, the closer and closer you get to election day, the more people are reconciled to their choices. You know, as we've gone to this election day, more and more people have become less reconciled to their choices, more unhappy with their choices. Whoever goes into the White House next year is going to have no mandate whatsoever, except that he's beaten the other guy.
In 1980, only 26%, about 1/4 of the eligible voters, elected Ronald Reagan president. Among the world's democracies, America ranks near the bottom in voter turnout. About 20 countries have a better record. This is a warehouse filled with voting machines. They're designed to record a massive turnout. But that won't happen because traditionally in America, only about half the eligible voters ever bother to pull this handle.
When you leave this place, I want you to vote.
In the final days of the campaign, the Reverend Jesse Jackson has been out working for the Democratic ticket. He is also trying to bring more voters into the election process.
After all, we have not just the top of the ticket, but 20,000 odd offices are open on November the 8th. The entire Congress. 1988, big city elections. 1990, the census count. 1991, reapportionment. 1992, a new national election. So we must keep hope alive.
One of the frustrations in the campaign, perhaps at this point, is that it has been a trading of campaign slogans and ads, and it's been so difficult to really get to some substantive debates and questions.
In these last days, Republican Senator Nancy Kassenbaum of Kansas has been campaigning for the local candidates as well as for the national ticket. She, like Jackson, is trying to overcome voter turnoff.
But the answer to that is a willingness to be involved.
I've always felt women's concerns were basically the concerns of everyone. The health of the economy, job security, very important to women today as they're such a major factor in the workforce. They've always cared about questions of peace and security. And in a way, I think that that's why this campaign perhaps doesn't seem to have any real clear focus. It's kind of scattered over a lot of issues.
Senator Kassenbaum also feels today's candidates lack a certain charisma.
Well, I can remember going to hear Kennedy when he was campaigning in 1960. It worked the crowd. There was an interaction that I think is missed today, and perhaps for security reasons they can't, but I think it's sad because I do think that's how you develop, again, a rapport that's important to have people feel they are personally engaged.
The experts say it is not apathy that keeps the voters sitting at home, but frustration, even anger, that their concerns are not being addressed by the presidential candidates. Jackson sees these reactions as not exclusive to minorities.
Blacks are not enigmas wrapped in mystery. They tend to respond to the same stimuli other people do. And this native campaigning and character attacks have a way of diminishing interest and putting out the flames of hope. For what are blacks asking for? That we stop drugs from coming in, that we stop jobs from going out, that we have fair prices for family farmers, and fair wages for workers, and equal rights for women and daycare for our children. Those agenda items, which are the heart and soul of Black America, applies to everybody, everywhere.
Given the fact of a low turnout, which is bad for the democratic system, what would you do about it, if you could?
I think there's no simple answer. I think you got to start, in the homes and get people to stop using television as a babysitter and start, engaging their children in reading and discussion and participation. I think you got to go into our schools, and reinstill a commitment to civic education and to training, both for leadership and participation. I think you've got to strengthen and realign our political parties. I think you've got to get away from the values which says that government is bad to a value which encourages people to start participating in their government.
The Washington Post, like hundreds of other newspapers, has declined to endorse either candidate. In abdicating its editorial responsibility, the Post nevertheless urged others to go out and vote.
I hear so many people say, oh, I'm so tired of the campaign. If I see one more of those campaign ads, I'm not going to bother to vote. And does it make any difference who you vote for? Well, you know that it does, or you wouldn't be here.
I want you to vote. Right. I want you to make a choice. And there is a choice.
Because it is a responsibility of citizenship. And it does make a difference.
We do have a reason to vote, and vote in great numbers.
On Tuesday, Americans will choose the leaders who will govern us for the next 4 years. It is a great responsibility for the voters and for the new president. The presidency of the United States is the most powerful office in the world.